distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please be seated to get ready for our last but very exciting session. A very different platform from what we have been doing in the last 19 VUS TESOL conferences. Welcome to the very first debate session hosted by Mr. Stephen Harper, VUS Senior Academic Manager.
Have you participated in a debate before? Can you please raise your hand if you've participated in a debate? Some of you. Is there anybody that's married here? Raise your hand. You have participated in a debate. Are there any married men here? Married men? You have lost a debate before. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first VUS TESOL debate. I'm very excited. If you notice on the screen, can we see our results from the audience voting? Just so we know where we are at, agree or disagree. You had the topic for discussion. It is more important for students to succeed on tests than learn values in the language classroom. We wanted to know your opinion for the initial voting, and now we have it. Ooh, can everybody see that? 75% of you disagree. 75%. Some of you have work to do. We will have another poll, the exact same poll, at the end of the debate to see if anybody has changed their mind. The winner of the debate is the one who will change the most opinions. So the idea of having this debate actually came at the end of last year's conference. I met Alan Davenport after the conference for some dinner, and we went out for dinner with a few other presenters, and we were talking about ways that we could make this year's conference unique. And I don't remember who exactly brought up the idea of having a debate, but I'm going to take full credit for it. Unless it does not go well, then it was Alan Davenport's idea. So I looked online at other TESOL conferences around the world, and I could not find a single one that had ever had a debate like this. So ladies and gentlemen, you are a part of TESOL history. Congratulations. Before I go over the format, I would like to introduce our debaters. In the right corner, weighing in at 125 pounds. On one side, we have the speakers arguing that success on tests is more important than learning values in the classroom. We have Mr. Alan Davenport from Cambridge University Press and Center. Known education. On the other side of the debate, we have speakers who are against the idea that success on tests is more important than learning values. We have Mr. Kieran Donaghy from Oxford University Press. And we have Mr. Andrew Duenas from National Geographic Learning. I'd like to mention that in this style of the debate, the debaters do not get to choose the side that they are on. They are assigned a side, either for or against, and they are asked to defend it with valiant arguments and logic. As such, the reasons and the arguments that you're going to hear might not be their own actual opinions or their employer's opinions. Let's look at the format of the debate. And we see the format here. Here's our speakers. Next slide, please. Here we go. We have done the initial audience voting. The next step will be a presentation. Each speaker will get 5 minutes to present their side. After that, we will look at a discussion. We will have about 10 minutes to discuss the points raised during the debate. After the discussion, you, the audience, will have a chance to ask the debaters questions. We will pass around microphones and you can ask the audience, the debaters, the question. Finally, we will have 2 minutes for each speaker to give a closing remark, and we will have final voting to see if you have changed your mind. So with that, let's start our presentation. Our first presenter is the one and only Mr. Alan Davenport from Cambridge University Press and Assessment. Alan.
Give me more than 5 minutes. Everybody wants to get home. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, it seems an unpopular opinion, but I am here to convince you that yes, exam success is more important than values. I know that in our heart of hearts, we want to be on this side. But I encourage you not to think with your heart. Let's do what we want our students to do and have a bit of critical thinking, shall we? Because if we think critically, we know the importance of exam success. What do you want in a doctor? Somebody who is really honest and caring, but never passed a medical exam? Do you want to be driven around by a taxi driver that failed the driving test? No, of course you don't! It doesn't make sense. See, the problem is, I think you're making this decision and saying exam success good, values bad. No, I want an honest taxi driver. But I also want them to be able to drive, and I want them to be able to prove it. And that's what exam success does. If you take our side, it does not mean you're saying values are bad. Take a person who's 230 centimeters tall. That's a tall person. But a person who's 250 centimeters tall is taller. Values are good. They are important. But preparing students for exam success is more important. It's not just that the product of the exam is important. The way that exams focus our teaching, they provide students and teachers common goals to work for, which is a virtuous cycle of motivation. We've all felt this when students are preparing for IELTS or some exam, that we get extra motivation in the classroom, and it motivates us as teachers as well. Now, you may be thinking, but I really like things like critical thinking and growth mindset and grit and perseverance. Well, one, those are cognitive processes. Those are not values. Values are internal characteristics. Honesty and integrity, and yes, they're important, but those things that we want, those cognitive processes of critical thinking, grit, a growth mindset, are developed by preparing for something challenging like exams. That's what helps students with perseverance, and that's what we want students to be able to do. Am I right? The other thing about exams, unlike values, exams are about achievement. We have a goal, and did you accomplish them? Exams are about achievement. Values are about judgment. Exactly whose values are we saying are correct or not? That's a difficult question if we think about it. Do you think that you and I have the exact same values? No, but with exams, we can be concrete. We have objectives, and we work towards them. So, like the doctor, who we want to make sure that has passed their exams, we also have to look at the real-world implications of exams. What is it for mobility, for access that helps our students achieve their goals beyond the language classroom? Universities around the world, yes, they want honest, caring students, but when they say, should you come and study at this university? Or when we're looking at getting jobs at international companies, they're not looking for your honesty certificate. They're looking for the certificate of how well you can speak English and can you prove it. And especially in the standardized exams, it gives you a chance to show off your ability. I'm not asking you to love exams. Again, I know your heart's going to be over here. But if we really think what is more important for our students and their life, it is undeniable, and I think you have to agree, that while values are important, helping students prepare and achieve exam success, especially in the language classroom where we are language teachers, is more important. Thank you all very much.
That will be a very tough act to follow, but if there's anybody that can do it, Blue, it is your turn. No chance.
I think Alan covered it all, which is good, because all I have to do is sort of build upon it. I'm hoping this typical works, right? How do I go to my...
Keep going.
Hey, there we go. Yeah, so as Alan alluded to there, we're not denying the fact that values aren't important. The determiner there more. It really does signify what he and Alan are on about here. The fact that, yeah, whilst we all hope, and you do as educators, incorporate values into your learning, just like our textbooks do at Oxford, Nat Geo, Macmillan Education, you, and Cambridge. They all instill these values in the content that you teach and as the person you are as a teacher. But the reality is, we're looking at this word there, important. In an ideal word, I'd get rid of that word and put that word in. Case closed. They're both important. But back to that word more, it has to be one or the other. So, I did a lot of research, argue why students succeeding on tests is more important than learning values in the classroom, and I got one single answer. Yeah. Now, hands up if you are a parent. Exactly. Reality. Your student, your young lad, your young girl comes home and goes, Mum, I got a 51 in my English exam. But I did help my friend cross the road this morning. I'll let you ponder which one you'll be thinking about, okay? So when it comes to the reality, you can look at the scale of importance. We've got values, we've got tests, okay? Yes, of course, we want to teach these things, respect, empathy, tolerance, whatever it might be. But over here, all I have to do is say, hey, that question I just posed to you, reality, it's those numbers, okay? So you might say to me, but Blue, but why? But you might say to me, but why? But you might say to me, why? Because numbers matter, okay? We need to quantify quality. How do we do that? Don't often really do it with values, we do it with numbers. And it's unfortunate, but it's reality. Example, you want to go to a school, whether that be a primary school, secondary school, higher education, university, okay? All of these numbers are really important wherever you want to get your child accepted. Here's an example, this is some Ivy League schools. You might be familiar with some of them. They're all prestigious, would you agree? Thank you. Now, they're all prestigious because they have a reputation. Now, that reputation will encompass a number of things, but I guarantee on top of that reputation will be results. Now, are those results down to values? Say no. No, thank you. They're down to numbers, okay? They really are, and that's the reality of what myself and Alan are trying to argue right now. So here's a vicious circle. It's very angry, okay? This is the reality. You get your acceptance based on exam results. Okay, wherever you want to go to university. Yes, of course, there might be references. There might be something else about you yourself. Okay, a personal write-up, a statement. But ultimately, it'll be those numbers that they focus on. Universities at the top, they can cherry pick and accept the strongest students. If they don't want you, you will filter down to your second choice, your third choice. They will also look at your numbers. Of course, again, I would preface by saying they will also look at everything else. Guarantee their eyes will go straight to the numbers first. Those universities who cherry pick the best students, of course, the byproduct of that is that they will reflect well in the numbers they receive from the students in the examinations. What does that mean? They keep and maintain their places at top of those tables. And why is that important? Because universities, like anything else, they want to keep their high reputation. They want to make more money. So the cycle begins again. So let me leave you with a quick analogy. Here's RMIT University. Okay, you might be familiar with it. And there we have... I'm a great team player, always helps others and offers support. That's wonderful, Kieran, I admire that. I do charity work and I've raised hundreds of dollars. Brilliant. Now RIT are going to say, that's commendable work, pat on the back. But how about your grades? You shall not pass. Mr. Davenport and I, of course, they're going to look at us as people. They want good people, but ultimately, they're going to focus on those numbers as well. Judge, I rest my case. Thank you very much, Bruno. Thank you.
And now we will look at the case against success on tests. We will start with Mr. Andrew Waynes. Can you give Andrew the clicker, please?
All right.
And you can start right now.
All right, so let me get these ready. First of all, as we look at this, I want to thank the moderator for making this purposefully vague. If we look at this statement, we can break it down into very many different possibilities, right? So it's more important to whom. It's what does success mean? Does it mean passing with the minimum score or the best? Mostly, I want to thank my opponents for giving us lots of data from the real world. Unfortunately, I'm going to make the claim that they are demonstrably false. Okay, so let's take a look at some university admission requirements. Who has said they're going to care about your score? They care about your numbers. Is that true? I spoke actually with Ed Brown, who's a senior academic manager at RMIT. They have the University Prep Way program. So if you meet the academic requirements to study at RMIT, but you do not achieve the target IELTS score, they have an English bridging program that will prepare you for the English challenge that you will face to study at university. Okay, if we say IELTS is so important, and from a policy perspective, we say our students must study IELTS, take a look at these tables of exams that are accepted by universities in Vietnam. If we focus all our attention on studying for the IELTS, which costs 4 million dong, it doesn't really address the students who want to take the V-step exam at 1.7 million dong. It's much cheaper and much more affordable and much more accessible. Okay, if we take a look at universities abroad, this is my university, let's take a look at their English requirements. Yes, they say you need an IELTS 7, you can also take the TOEFL exam or the Duolingo exam. They're giving you options. They're also saying if you study at high school in English, so as international school in Ho Chi Minh City, you do not even need to submit your exam scores. Your success in high school, in an international school, proves that you are capable of doing the degree program. Let's take a look at more. Harvard University. This is the link for their international applicants. You do not even need to submit an English score. Your application profile will speak for itself. It is a portfolio. They will assess all of your essay questions. So you don't even need to take tests for Harvard. University of Washington, if you don't achieve the target IELTS score, there are other ways that you can demonstrate your English proficiency. It's not just a test. The same thing is true of the University of Nottingham in the United Kingdom. So what we see at universities domestically here in Vietnam and also abroad is that they give options to students. There are many, many, many ways to demonstrate your English proficiency. So focusing on an exam really vastly underserved the other students because extensive test preparation only serves a subset of the population of language learners. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. And our final presenter, Mr. Kieran Donaghy, also arguing against success on tests being the most important value. And your 5 minutes starts now, Kieran.
So, what I'm going to do is to make sure that I stay within the 5 minutes, I'm going to use notes. Okay, I'm going to refer to my notes. I'm going to take a slightly different approach. I'm going to take a more sort of academic approach to explaining this and looking at how we can actually implement values in an ethical way. I would completely agree with Alan and Blue that exams are essential and that assessment and learning go hand in hand. But I would also argue that learning values is equally important. For me, the most important reason for implementing values education is that we need to provide an environment that allows our students to explore the values and skills they need to navigate our interconnected and globalized world. However, it's vitally important that we don't insist on implementing our own values and our own ethical choices to students. What we should do is to help our students develop their own skills in applying values and moral principles to their lives. To help students develop their skills in applying values and moral principles in their lives, we should focus on what the philosopher Isaiah Berlin called universal values. Now, universal values are values that have existed in the vast majority of places at almost all times in history. And here we have a list of some universal values. And these universal values, such as compassion, fairness, honesty, generosity, kindness, tolerance, and wisdom, are equally relevant in Vietnam, in Japan, in Egypt, in the UK, in Mexico, and in the USA. Okay? In order to implement values education, we can use value affirmations that encourage students to reflect on values that are personally relevant to them and to their lives. Here we have an example of a values affirmation. Here students have to reflect on values that are personally relevant to them and their lives, and then to explain why they are important to them. But before students reflect on the values which are important to them, the teacher should reveal values that are important to him or her, and then to explain why. So here are 10 values that are important to me. I would reveal this to the students and then explain why these values are important to me. By doing this, I am open to students, I'm vulnerable, and students are much more likely to be prepared to talk about the values that are important to them. Also, this helps us show that model the teacher as an ethical and compassionate person. And a large body of research shows that these types of values affirmations have a very positive impact on student performance. They reduce student stress. Okay. They result in students responding to feedback more positively, and they improve student willpower and self-control. So there are many benefits to these values educations. So, in conclusion, I would say that values education enriches language education, and it has a very positive impact on students' well-being, on students' academic performance, and on students' behaviour. And finally, as Malala argues, we need to educate not just our students' minds, but also their hearts and souls, which very much connects to the theme of the conference, holistic education. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right, I think we will rearrange our seats for the discussion section. We can bring our chairs closer. We are done with the slides. We will have a 10-minute discussion. Everybody comfortable? You have our water? Everybody have a microphone? I have a list of questions that I can ask our different debaters, but I would rather not ask any of these questions. I would rather see if we can have a discussion about any points that came up, anything you would like to say to follow on what the other side said. Is there anything immediate? Lou is raising his hand.
Yeah, a couple of things. Again, we're not denying everything that got mentioned there. Values are important, but that key word is all. And at the end of the day, it will come back down to it. Like, a good example would be here in the US. We have a number of celebrations where we celebrate student success, IELTS writers, Cambridge Fly examination, where we come together at these big conference halls, these big halls where we hand out awards based upon their academic achievement that they achieved in the tests. Now, I don't remember, I've attended a number of IELTS celebrations for a number of students, and I don't remember having to give out an award for a student who got a 4.5 in the IELTS. Okay, they were all there based on the fact that they were all 7, 6.5, 7, 8 higher, okay, in terms of the band score. That's what we were celebrating. Again, it's not to discredit anything to do with values. That ultimately is what we were there celebrating. Also, to Andy's point about, yeah, of course, there's a number of universities that look beyond just numbers, but also there with the Nottingham reference, the example mentioned back at the bottom. Yes, we might look beyond numbers, test results, but you have to take a number of English courses. So what happens after those English courses? Is there a pass-fail, or is it just a case of having to take them with neither pass-fail connected to it? So I'll be interested to see where that led to once they take those courses, if there's numbers attached as well.
Yeah, of course you have to pass the test, you have to demonstrate your learning, but there are a number of ways to assess English ability that is not a test. Oftentimes we think about things like the IELTS as the gold standard of whether or not you can speak English, but just take a look around, like if you're working at an international company or working with people from other countries, after you take the IELTS exam, really your performance is measured on how well you carry out your job duties, how well you can execute your job function. So, of course, you have to pass a test to pass the class, but you have to demonstrate growth in those English courses to be able to move on. A test is not the only way to demonstrate and assess someone's English proficiency.
It's demonstrating a growth of value.
No.
So within that development of growth, how can you apply the values to display that growth has occurred?
I'm not addressing values at this point, I'm just talking about the assessment.
I think there's another separate issue that does need to be addressed, and this is thinking that exam equals IELTS or exam equals Cambridge. Exam can be that classroom test that you give. Exam can be one that I'm actually most proud about at Cambridge, the Young Learners exams, which provide motivation and fun and don't give a score. And that's still a type of exam success. You very rightfully said, what does success mean? And if success means exactly the numbers all the time, then of course, you have a valid point. But if success means that milestone of achievement, that making learning visible, that telling the student, yes, this was something that you worked for and you accomplished it, that has so much worth and goes on for the rest of the life. Now, unfortunately for both of you, I should give you full disclosure. Before I worked for Cambridge, do you know where I worked? A little place called RMIT, so I'm happy that it was up there, where I was the academic coordinator. And I will tell you, yes, we let you in to the pathway program without an exam, but to get into full university, it's exam-based. It still winds up coming in. It may not be that threshold to get in, but eventually, as Lou most rightly said, you have to pay up sometime. You may get in, but it's still going to be the exam out. So I also take your point in that way. But high school, you said you can do it through high school. And that's IGCSEs, high school exams. It's still test-based. If nobody's going to say you failed in international high school, but come on into our university. It doesn't have to be the IELTS test. We're talking about exam preparation in general, and that's why it's more important than values. In Latin now.
So far, I don't think that we've addressed much about language teaching on the value side. I've done a lot of arguments against exam success or taking a test. In terms of the benefits of teaching values in language courses, the reason that we teach language is that we want to do something with our language. We want to go out and act with our language. And the things that values allow us to do are act, right? If we take the tests and if we take the tasks from the test and say go out into the real world and do that, that's definitely not really going to get you anywhere. There's a study by Moore and Morton in 1999 about the authenticity of the IELTS academic writing module, where a bunch of college professors said these tasks don't represent the kind of writing that we assess in university. What we need are assessments that tell us that students can actually do research. So when we talk about teaching values, that is the social context that introduces the reasons to communicate. So that's why I think that values are more important, because they actually give us real reasons to communicate rather than just trying to assess ourselves or measure ourselves with some number and pretty much boil our self-value down to a number.
Kieran, I want to ask you a question. We haven't heard from you yet. How would you define success in the language classroom?
What I define
success.
Success.
Would it be in the context of a test?
Certainly, it would be certainly a part of it. It would be the ability for the student to communicate effectively. Part of communicating effectively would involve being a good listener, being an active listener, having empathy, caring for the other person. So there's definitely, they go hand, I understand that language education and assessment go hand in hand, but I would also argue that values as well are related there. To be a good communicator, I would say in many ways, rather than looking at exam success is obviously very important, but I would say fundamentally the ability to communicate your message well and to understand the message of the other person. To understand the message of the other person, I would say, and to be able to communicate effectively as well, that you would need to have certain values.
In response to that?
No argument, it just doesn't make it more important than exam success. I mean, it comes down to it. You have, as Lou said, a parent that comes into your school and says, my student didn't do well on their exam. Yes, but they have empathy. How do you feel about addressing that student?
I've never seen empathy on a rubric as well. Again, I hate to say it, like a broken record, but it goes down to the reality. Schools, parents, students themselves, they will take more pride in the fact that academic achievement, the score that they receive. Again, I'm not discrediting being a good person. Like I explained in the beginning, I like to think as teachers, or even books we use, we're teaching those values every day. Okay, we really are. But going back to the ball.
I think it's unfortunate that so many people are so obsessed with numbers and performance. And if you get a parent who comes in and said, my kid didn't pass the test, that brings us to the question, who is it important to? Who are we talking about? Are we talking about the parents? Do we teach our children because of what their parents want? Partially because they're the ones paying to send them to our centers or our universities. But what about the student? What does the student want? I guarantee you, the student doesn't want to sit down and take multiple choice tests all the time. They want to learn English so they can go on YouTube or go on TikTok and watch all of that content and interact with people in the real world. So when we say it's more important to who? It's more important to the parents, sure. It's more important to the school, sure. It's more important to the teacher, maybe. It's equally important to the student.
Call me old, but I would hardly bring up a tickety talk as a defense of values and saying that that's what the students want to do and that sort of thing. Now you do make a good point about, who is it valuable to, but then you ask what do students want. And in my experience, I think students want a sense of achievement. They want a sense of purpose. A lot of times, students, when we find them unmotivated in our English classes, it's because they don't know what they're learning English for. But when we have these exams, when we have these, if we say, you know, you're learning this in order that you can achieve this and show the results and view the results of your learning and have those milestones of success, that's rewarding. That's what keeps students coming back and feeling achievement. That's what really makes the magic happen, is that vicious cycle of, that he said, versus that virtuous cycle of motivation. So you can say that you don't want numbers, and yes, it is somewhat unfortunate the tests get distilled down into numbers. But you know what those numbers do? They represent achievement, they represent hard work, they represent the payoff for the time spent. It's like running a marathon. While you're running the marathon, you may not enjoy it, but the feeling of accomplishment at the end when you get that result, is so much better than just feeling, oh, I'm an empathetic person. And we're not saying values don't matter. We aren't saying that the IELTS is the only test. What we are saying is that in real life, whether we like it or not, exam success is more
I'm
important.
going to stop this right there before the box does come out.
Context in real life. Exams are important in a subset of context.
All right, I would like to turn it over to the audience. If you have any questions, please raise your hand. We will try to get you a microphone. I want you to address a particular side or a speaker with your question. So if you have a question, here we go. I see a hand over here already. Wow, lots of hands. Find a hand and give them a microphone.
Hello. Hello everybody. I'm Professor. Thank you. First of all, I'm very impressed with the debate from the blue team. Very energetic, very creative, and enthusiasm. I almost be persuaded by you, but then I just take 1 minute to think about what about if the doctor like us, kindness, and honesty. Yeah?
Yeah, I would still teach my daughter all of those things. Yeah.
And how many doctors in the whole world? How many doctors? How many percent of the experts of each field do we have? So the reality is the number of the people. We are people, so we need to have value.
I agree.
Yeah, if not value, if we just take on the number only, maybe we become all robots.
Also, if you're a doctor, you need to spend the rest of your life passing examinations to continue to be a doctor. So, I completely agree with what you're saying. But the but trumps it. Yeah.
I am an empathetic person, I think. I try to be honest, I try to be good. I have never learned how to cut hair, and I've never taken a test. Would you let me cut your hair right now?
Of course.
But I'm a good person. I'm honest.
Yeah, we don't have any number about
He would
that.
try his best.
Can you show me that? Can you?
I mean, I think that's a
Do we
false
have a
claim.
number?
I'll try my best.
Hold on, let's hear from Andrew. Go ahead.
I would just say that how nice of a person you are is unrelated to your skill as a person who can cut hair. And your point there is really a false dichotomy, I would say.
Okay. Another question, please.
I just have a comment. Testing is very competitive in Vietnam and very connected to financial stability and future opportunities in Vietnam. So, as the Vietnamese say, don't think too much, which would go right into not thinking about too many outside things from testing.
Was that a question for a particular person?
Well, that's just a comment.
Just a comment. Okay. Thanks for the comment. Much appreciated.
I would agree, don't think too much. So if you know the content, then you can pass the test, right? So we don't need to focus so much on exam preparation and exam skills. I think that don't think too much, just use what you know. I would say, yeah.
Okay. Another question, please. I'm not the one choosing, don't look at me.
Hello. Hello, thank you. Thank you very much for your exciting and impressive debate. I have ever until now. Yeah. I think for me, according to the theory of relativity made by Albert Einstein, internationally famous scientist, I think nothing is absolute. Nothing is perfect. No one is perfect. So I think maybe this discussion, we don't have the fix as kids. I think in this case, it's maybe more important. But in another case, another situation, the other is more important.
Yeah, so it goes back to the point of who is it important to? What does success mean? Which test are we talking about? And many of the other ways that we can break down the statement.
Thank you very much, for your sharing with good, excellent ideas for us. And we can learn a lot from this conference from VUS. Thank you very much again.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
Thank you for such a lively, animated discussion. I find myself on the side of Alan and Blue, and I think that exams are more important. Yet I have one quick question. My question is a great concern for some test takers, and I think in my own experience there are quite a few test takers that they get overly anxious under exam conditions, and hence the exam results do not actually reflect their linguistic competence. So how can we help those learners with the exam anxiety and stress?
That's a really great question, actually. That was the next question on my list. Is there, to some extent, test results don't reflect the actual learning of students?
To a degree, you're completely right, but it won't change until the system changes. And the system, unfortunately, isn't exclusive to Vietnam. This is a worldwide system we're talking about. It's what academic institutions live and die by. So it's not going to change overnight. But honestly, let's take away numbers from tests. Let's look at different ways in which we can test students. Let's look at more practical elements that we can incorporate that will hopefully deflate any of that unconsciousness, any of that defeat, even before the test has been taken, purely because they've been defeated by nerves. It happens, it's a reality. I'm the same in job interviews. I know my stuff, I think. But I get into a job interview, I fumble my words, I panic. Tests are no different for many people. So let's go away from numbers and let's look at different ways to test and evaluate. But ultimately, we're still looking at ways that people, students, will pass and fail. What we really need to look at and focus on is ways in which they can feel comfortable and near in order to get the most out of them. So that would be my answer to that.
There's also no reason that part of exam preparation can actually address exam anxiety, what you're going to feel on exam day. One of my favorite pieces of research is by a guy named John Lilowski, who in the New Scientific American put something called Opening the Educational Toolbox. And in it, it found that frequent practice testing was one of the highest drivers of success in knowledge and language acquisition and any type of subject acquisition. More so than a lot of other things that we thought, because that frequent practice testing, getting used to the idea, knowing what you're going to experience, and being okay with it, being at ease with it, is part of it. So yes, if we're just giving a test out of nowhere, like a pop quiz and it's anxious, it may not be fair, and I think that we will concede that. But when we're talking about, I think the question says, preparing for exam success, part of that preparation is dealing and having those talks about anxiety. It's not just strategies on how to do multiple choice questions. It is about what you're going to face on exam day. And that transfers into the job interview situation and becomes a future life skill as well. So yes, I take your point, but exams can be stressful. Guess what? Life can be stressful. and it's good practice for life.
Thank you. We have time for one more question. One more.
Hello. Yeah, over here. I originally sided with the values, but now I'm kind of siding towards exams and exam results.
Don't do it! You little support.
So I'm now on Alan's team and Blue's team. But I do have one question for you. What about people who immorally prepare for exams? For example, cheating. And what about what about the taxi driver? If he immorally or illegally got his driver's license, how would you argue that?
So I'm going to take a point and say that when it comes to the word cheating, there's different ways to cheat. And I used to get frustrated with my students when I gave them what I believe was a fun activity, and they tried to cut corners, basically find the answers. And I think, why do you do that? You're only shooting yourselves in the foot, okay? If you actually try and apply yourself and do that, there's so much you can take from it and benefit from. But unfortunately, the system itself is almost wrong, especially in the public school system, where particular exams can be passed, but only if students go to extra classes. And these extra classes cost money, where basically students are fed the answers of which they learn by heart, recite the next day, and then what happens? They forget. Okay? So to answer your question without really answering it directly, is the whole system is changing. Examinations need to be looked at the way they're done. The amount of examinations that these poor students are expected to take and the pressure that it bestows and puts on them, it's unfair. But ultimately, it's not going to change until the whole, that vicious wheel changes, where institutions themselves don't try and cut corners, so then students feel they have to cut themselves.
Thanks, Blue. We're going to go to our closing remarks. This is going very quickly. Alan, I'm going to start with you. You've got 2 minutes to make your closing remarks. Go ahead.
I just want to address a few things. Going with the cheating as well. Yes, cheating does happen, but if we change it to values, education, I mean, come on, do you think that students aren't just going to try to present the values that we want to see? And maybe we see this on the playground sometimes. Little angels in the classroom and pushing people. So I mean, again, real world stuff. I mean, I can't address to say cheating won't happen, but if we just look at the values, I think the same problems happen there. What I want to point out for the closing argument is just exactly what Blue will probably say too. It's not that we disagree with the importance of values. There's nothing you said I disagree with. But the problem is that word more. And whether you love exams or hate them, right now, we cannot deny preparing students for exam success is more important than them leading with values. I think we made the case clearly, and I'll let Blue sum it.
Blue, 2 minutes.
May 28. In this webinar, National Geographic Learning academic consultant Andy, apologies, Andy's surname? Duenas will discuss steps that teachers can take to help students succeed on the VSTEP exam and other language proficiency exams. With the model of exam skills are life skills, Andy will demonstrate activities that help students develop skills that are relevant to their real lives and applicable on language exams.
Andy, follow up.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. Exam skills are life skills. It means that things that we succeed, if you go and watch that webinar, I talk about how things that we do in our lives every day form the skills that help us succeed on exams. Okay, so if you are good at critical thinking, you will succeed on the exam. If you think carefully and are detail-oriented, that will help you succeed on the exam. So that's what I mean by that. I'd also like to go back to the proposition, which is exams, it's more important to succeed on exams than learn values in the language classroom. So yes, I agree that it's important to succeed on exams, but specifically in the language classroom, if you just study for a test, prepare for tests, that doesn't help you communicate in the real world, okay? Learning values give us a reason to communicate. And I finally just like to wrap up by saying that we should judge policies by their real effect in the real world and not by their intent. And I would just like to say I'm the only one who seems to have brought real data from the real world and real university in this terms requirements. Thank you.
So while I completely agree with Lou and Alan that we want professionals who are very well qualified, but I would also argue that we also need professionals who are honest, who are honourable, passionate and ethical. Lots of studies coming out from consultancies around the world are showing that in the future the skills which employers want most are soft skills such as active listening, compassion, empathy, and these skills involve values. To have these soft skills, students need values. I think perhaps the main problem that we have is an overemphasis on exams and assessments, which Lou and Alan both pointed out there. This overemphasis on exams and assessments takes away time for social and emotional education. My other area of expertise, besides multimodality and visual literacy, is empathy. And the research from Bridget Cooper, specifically in the University of Sunderland in the UK, who studied the characteristics of empathetic and unempathetic teachers, found that teachers who were unempathetic were generally teachers who overstressed the importance of examinations to students and spent a lot of time. These were the most unempathetic teachers.
Thank you, debaters. Interesting. And now we want to turn it back over to the audience. We will load Kahoot one more time with the exact same poll, and you can see it if we've changed our minds or not. So I think we'll maybe have to move out of here. Can we load Kahoot again?